Hello YouTube, this is a video covering certain scandals that politicians have faced over the years in the United States. I will be using data from a report released by the National Women's Defense League in 2023. We have a lot to cover, so shall we begin? According to the National Women's Defense League, there have been over 400 incidents since 2013, and those incidents have been carried out by 145 lawmakers. I'm going to show you a list that the NWDL released. Now, I know there are a lot of dodgy lists out there that are currently attracting lots of attention. However, unlike the list that we all know that I'm talking about, now, I know there are a lot of dodgy lists out there that are currently attracting lots of attention. However, unlike the list that we all know I'm talking about, this list is readily available to the public. A quick internet search will lead you to it. Look at it. Your representatives. They apparently represent how their constituents view sexual morals and accountability. There is a lot here, so for purposes of time, we will only cover the ones who are still currently in office. Feel free to pause and observe the list to see if any of your representatives from your state are on this dubious list. Roughly 1/3 have either resigned or been forced out, which is good. The majority of these cases involve inappropriate language that rises to the level of sexual harassment. The accused are overwhelmingly men, with 96% of the accused lawmakers being men. However, there are a few women on this list, and as they say, ladies first. The first person we will cover in this video is current New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. She is able to negotiate a settlement with the victim in 2021. That same year, the victim accused her of dumping water on his crotch and rubbing the area with napkins, towels to dry him up. Now, in the state of California, Cristina Garcia was accused of grabbing a subordinate's buttocks and participating in raunchy conversations. However, the same government she works for cleared her of the most serious allegation. However, she was still removed from top leadership positions after she admitted to using vulgar language and trying to convince male staff members to play spin the bottle. Priorities, right? And Idaho Congresswoman Priscilla Giddings landed in hot water after she revealed the identity of a victim who suffered at the hands of one of her colleagues, Erin Von Ellinger. You would think that women would want to stick together and help out the victims in any way they can, but apparently not. Priscilla put political career ahead of the right thing to do. She was censured by the legislature in 2021, but the only reason she hasn't maintained her seat is because she decided to give it up to run for lieutenant governor, but thankfully she wasn't successful. Back to the Golden State, multiple lawmakers were reprimanded for sexual misconduct, but none resigned or were forced out. For example, Autumn Burke was criticized after having conversations about anal sex with her staff workers. You know, instead of talking about boring things like tax policy, regulation, and reform, she had other things on her mind. President of the California Senate, Bob Herzberg, received the comical nickname Hugsburg after 3 lawmakers came out to say his constant hugs made them uncomfortable. Now, I don't think hugging in and of itself is sexual harassment, but if you're doing it at the amount where it just makes people comfortable, maybe you should have been able to read the room better. Devin Mathis was also another California politician caught up in this series of sex scandals, and he was accused of inappropriate language directed at female staff members. But he also is still serving within the California legislature. On the other side of the country in Florida, Fabian Basabe has been accused by multiple men of sexual harassment, the most serious accusation involving drugging a man and sexually assaulting him in 2003. Which is even more egregious is the fact that he skipped court in early June of this year, and instead of a warrant for his arrest, he received a phone call and a voicemail.
I was hoping we would get the case set for trial. Your thoughts?
We would like to do that, Your Honor. We would like some deadlines. We've got about 5 to 7 people that we still need to depose because Mr. Basabe is still a state representative. He has not, or his former attorney, their side did not invoke the legislative stay, but there were some state legislators, and one's former, one's current. The current one wanted the stay. There was some arm wrestling over the former one, but just to be safe, if we can set for trial in July, so it's outside of the legislative session, and that 15-day stay they get when the session ends.
July 10, jury selection. That gives us a pretrial of June the 4th next year. All right. Well, it's always a challenge with a pro se litigant, and I truly hope with Mr. Basabe. I mean, my plan was to discuss with Mr. Basabe the advantages and disadvantages of self-representation today, but all you can do is all you can do.
Just shows that politicians are on a different level playing field compared to their constituents. I was reading an article out of Maryland covering a sex scandal related to the local state politician Charles Barkley, and no, it's not that Charles Barkley, it's actually this white guy, the white Charles Barkley. Anyway, that Charles Barkley was accused of, in a quote, she said, pulled me in too close, held me too long, and gave me a sloppy wet kiss on the cheek. His behavior crossed the line, it was inappropriate. End of quote. However, he is still in the legislature. That story just kind of got my attention with the whole sloppy wet kiss on the cheek, gross. Now I am going to cover what I think is the most infamous case in this list that I found of politicians that are still serving in government, and that is of Virginia politician Joe Morrissey. On June 30th, 2014, Morrissey was indicted on felony charges of indecent liberties with a minor, possession and distribution of CP. The photo he shared with a friend, by the way, hence the distribution charge, and electronic solicitation of a minor, in addition to a misdemeanor charge of contributing to the delinquency of a minor, for which conviction he served 3 months of a 12-month sentence. Once he completed his sentence, he went ahead and married the victim once she was 20. However, he was 59, and also consider when he faced that initial charge, this was 3 years earlier when she was only 17, so that still makes him 56. Now also I have to add that she did give birth to a baby, which was determined to be conceived by Morrissey, and also they did have 3 kids, and that first child that was conceived when she was still a minor. And apparently he didn't learn much about respecting women because she ended up divorcing him over allegations that he was involved in multiple affairs, plus another scandal involving naughty language on live TV. And after all of that, he still continued to serve until December of 2014. He was actually allowed to attend legislative sessions on work release. He did end up resigning, however, and he ran again in the special election as an independent and won his seat back, despite serving a 6-month jail sentence for other non-sex crime related charges. That's what boggles my mind. You can't even use the excuse of partisan politics here. Oh, he was a Democrat, so all the Democrats voted for him, or he was a Republican, all the Republicans voted for him. This guy ran as an independent against Republicans and Democrats, and he still won. We gotta do better, people. What does that say about the constituents in his district? And the last egregious thing is that in 2022, on the Virginia governor's last day, Ralph Northam pardoned Morrissey as a parting gift. People look at the high-profile examples of sexual misconduct in the White House over the past few decades, and they wonder how these people were able to secure the highest office in the land. And it all starts with people at the state legislature level, with people like Morrissey. And this could have been addressed in multiple areas as time went on over the years, from being expelled from the legislature to losing at the ballot box, down to the sweetheart pardon he received from the governor. If people like this aren't held accountable at state level offices, it's no wonder that these sexual deviants are rising to the highest levels of government. The NWDL report as well as the AP both admit that the numbers stated at the beginning of the video are most likely an undercount. They acknowledge that the prevalence of SA is realistically much higher and just doesn't get attention, or the victims are too scared to speak out. See, like, we hear all the time about Bill Clinton and Donald Trump and they're all their weird, sketchy sexual escapades, and this applies to just, like, American politics in general. Like, people are just a lot more knowledgeable about what's going on in the federal government than what's going on in their own state legislature, the state that they live in, the people that technically are making decisions that probably affect the average American more than the decisions being made in the White House. So in this country, now more than ever, victims of legitimate abuse need to speak out so that the electorate knows who truly deserves to sit in the halls of power versus those who take advantage of the people's votes while flouting accountability. However, the ballot box is the ultimate form of accountability. If the legislature fails to expel them, if the governor is going to, or even the president's going to give them a pardon, then that our last option literally is the ballot box. And people need to use it. I'm just going to say, you're going to bet your ass that this video is going to get demonetized, and I'm not sure how long it's going to stay up. But I just made this video to spread attention on this subject and honestly spread awareness on my own channel. And if you support that cause, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, thank you and have a blessed day.